Are you ready? There's no pulling out. 3, 2, 1, fight. Yeah. In today's video, we're going to compare two different cameras, the Canon EOS M50 and the original Canon EOS M. You know, you guys have been saying, which one is better, the M50 or the EOS M? Should I upgrade to the M50 or should I use this as my A camera? So in today's video, we're going to test these two cameras, see how they played out in the field. We're going to shoot some raw video on the Canon EOS M and some 4K goodness on the Canon EOS M50. So before we go out and shoot, let's take a close look at these two cameras. Now the Canon EOS M came out in 2012 and the Canon M50 came out in 2018. So there's a 6-year gap between these two. The EOS M has an 18 megapixel CMOS sensor and the M50 comes on top with the 24 megapixels. All right, so comparing these two cameras physically, the EOS M weighs 300 grams and the Canon M50 weighs 400 grams. You know, in the hand, they don't feel too heavy. The M50 feels just slightly a bit chunkier, but overall, you're not going to break some sweat when you're walking out in the field with these two cameras. Both cameras have 3-inch screens. However, the EOS M, it's fixed. There's no flip out screen, so you can't, see yourself when you're vlogging. On the M50, on the other hand, you got a nice 3-inch display like the Canon EOS M, but this one can flip out. You can articulate it, so it's fully articulated. And so it's very helpful if you're trying to vlog and you want to see something as a reference. So the M50 wins in that regards. In terms of viewfinders, the EOS M has nothing. What you're left with are external viewfinders like this one. This is an LCD V6. It costs about 10 bucks. It's magnetic. Clip it onto the frame and you can see your shots nice and clearly in bright sunlight like this. On the M50, you have an electronic viewfinder, 2360 dots, and it works fantastic as expected. You can see your shots nice and clearly. The resolution's great. So if you don't want to deal with external viewfinders like the Canon EOS M, then the EOS M50 will have the edge with the electronic viewfinder. In terms of stabilization, the Canon EOS M has none whatsoever. You're gonna have to go out and fetch a gimbal or a stabilizer of some sort. On the M50, you do have stabilization. However, it is digital and it does crop into the frame. All right, so now it's time to test out these two cameras, the Canon EOS M against the M50. Both these cameras can shoot some high resolution. With the EOS M, you can shoot Magic Lantern RAW up to 2.5K, 2.8K RAW, and the quality looks stunning. On the M50, you can shoot up to 4K, and these two cameras both have crop factors, large crop factors in the high resolution mode, so you should get some good comparison between these two. So without further ado, let's go and test them out. All right, so I'm shooting on the Canon M50 now, and I'm shooting 4K. We're trying to get a landscape shot here. I'm shooting with cine style picture profile, and I'm shooting f8 15mm on the Canon 15-45. All right, so now shooting with the Canon EOS M, and I'm shooting 2.5K RAW. Let's go and shoot. All right, so for this next test, we're going to use the Helios 44-2. It's a famous Russian lens, got the nice swirl. These lenses have quite big crop factors, so I'm not sure if we're going to get any swirl out of these. But I do have a Viltrox speed booster, which allows you to get a wider field of view, a more shallow depth of field with these cameras. So let's test this combo out and just see how it goes with these cameras. Now when it comes to slow motion shooting, this is where the Canon M50 really shines. On the EOS M, you're limited to a max of 30 frames per second. With the Canon M50 in 1080p, you get a maximum of 60 frames per second, so you can get nice, smooth slow motion. All right, so for these next few shots, I'm pretty much going to stick with 4K, and we're going to test out the Cosmica. It's a C-mount lens. It's a 16mm f1.4. You can get these off eBay for a cheap price, and it's great for crop modes. With 1080p mode, full sensor APS-C, it's not going to work. You can get vignette. And so with the crop modes on the EOS M, like 2.5K or the 4K on the M50 with the 2.56 times crop factor, you're going to get some nice shots with this 16mm f1.4 C-mount lens that sells for really cheap. So let's test them out, see how these two cameras perform. Alright guys, so here's this super harsh scene. Over here is like a mini waterfall, and we're going to test the dynamic range of these two cameras. I'm shooting at 15mm and focus is pretty much everywhere. Infinity focus, f10. Alright. Alright, so now we're testing out the Canon EOS M against the M50. We're checking for skin tones and depth of field. I'm going to be shooting 2.5K and 2.8K, and on the M50, I'm going to be shooting some 4K video. Let's test them out. Alright, so now it's time for the final verdict between these two cameras, the Canon EOS M Original and the EOS M50. Which one do you guys like more? Let me know in the comments below. I personally haven't seen the footage yet, but the EOS M does shoot RAW up to 14 bits. You can shoot 2.5K and 2.8K max. They do have limitations like record limits, 1080p it's continuous, and 2.5K at 2.35:1 aspect ratio. Now, when I was shooting with these out in the field, I have to say that I did enjoy holding the EOS M50 more. It's got a nice solid grip to it. The ergonomics are great. The M50 does have an articulate screen, so when you want to get some low shots like this, then that's always an option. You got a nice EVF, so if you're in bright conditions, this is going to come in extreme handy. Unfortunately, the EOS M doesn't have that. You're going to have to get an external viewfinder for the M. Also with the M50, it's 8-bit footage, so if you're going to stretch it in post, you might get some banding or color artifacts. Whereas on the EOS M with Magic Lantern RAW, the image is straight from the sensor, so it's very malleable. You can play around a lot in post without getting banding and artifacts. So this would have the upper hand if you want to do lots of grading. If you're somebody who wants to get nice quick footage out of your camera without doing much in post, then the M50 is going to be your bet. With the EOS M and Magic Lantern RAW, you're going to have to use MLV app, which is a software like Photoshop, where you just color grade your footage and then export it from there. So it's a bit of a process with the M, whereas the M50, it's nice and quick. Now looking at my personal view, I've been shooting with these cameras for a really long time. I've been shooting more with the EOS M, I think about 2 or 3 years. With the Canon M50, it's been about a year or so. If I was looking to do a lot of photography and some videos, you know, just quick snaps here and there, then the M50 would be my bet. Or if I was doing YouTube, where I want an articulate screen or some webcam use, the M50 would be my go-to. If I want to just relax, take my time, frame my shots, get nice color, that's my main aim, then the Canon EOS M would be my choice of camera. It does have some limitations like not being able to shoot high FPS, whereas the M50 can shoot 60 frames per second. But all in all, the M50 is a real joy to use, and I absolutely love the footage coming out of this camera. Now, if you're planning to shoot 4K on the M50, it does have a 2.56 times crop, which is quite large. So with the 15 to 45, you're getting a nice perfect field of view. It's nice and wide. However, you do get some jello effect. You know, it looks all wobbly in the footage when you're panning too fast. So that's something to be cautious about. The 1080 mode's quite fine. And if you're going to do some autofocus work, then the 1080p would be your bet with dual pixel autofocus. So that's it with the test between these two cameras. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you aren't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.